I think that tarot is if you can use it as a map, like any map that you can have of consciousness, then when you travel in consciousness, for example, through lucid dreams or however it may be, it is extremely useful to have some kind of guidance about where you are and what it is that you should be doing. And of course, for that, it's extremely important to keep a record of your dreams and your experiences and your visions in order to be able to, over time, put those together and, and to make a map out of them, so that you kind of have a map. I mean, the importance of that is that if we go through our waking life only, it kind of seems many times like a disjointed series of days where you go to work, you come home, you whatever you do in your day, and it seems to repeat itself, and there are these little variations, but it's not. It doesn't necessarily feel like a journey to a specific destination, but then when you incorporate the dream life and the other side and start to make a map out of it and try to make sense of it, then you can see your life in a more holistic level, and you can start to see your life not as, I don't know, as a bureaucrat or as a businessman or whatever it is that you do, but rather as a hero or a heroine, fighting dragons, rescuing and taking the gold, and all those heroic things that I believe that we are actually doing, or we could be doing. There was a very good friend who told me that the tarot cards can be seen not as a system of divination, but rather as a kind of geography of consciousness, a kind of description of the geography of the other world, of the magical world, of the astral plane, however we wish to call it, and that if you have a map of those places in the astral world, then if you enter a kind of an astral projection or a conscious dream, something like this, and you have certain themes, you can recognize those themes and you can see, aha, so now I'm not just being unconsciously propelled into some random experience in the dream world, but I can actually recognize these themes in the dream world, and I know more or less, at least, what it is that I'm supposed to be doing here, or what it is that this puzzle is about, because it seems to be like that when you enter the astral, the dream world, when you enter meta states of consciousness, what it's about is actually unlocking the next state, the next stage. And the thing is, like, you need to unlock different parts of your consciousness, because, well, what I think is the reason for that is that we have kind of a fail-safe mechanism in order not to go crazy. Our being has this wisdom within it that it doesn't just open all the doors at once, because you would actually go crazy if all of reality would reveal itself to you all at the same time. That would be a prescription for madness, and therefore you have to be able to show that you're ready, and that's the meaning of those doors and the gatekeepers that are always present in mythology, who ask riddles.
And would you say you have a favorite tarot card, or maybe a few cards that speak most to you?
Yes, the Hanged Man definitely speaks to me a lot. It's a card. It's a card that is about suffering, and it's a card that is also about transcending suffering. I think it is one of the stages. It's a difficult stage in the journey because I think to me the essence of the Hanged Man card is that you're not able to at this point to take action and move away from the suffering. You have to stay there, and you have to stay until you transcend it. And we have many parallels in mythology to that. There's Odin, who hangs from the tree of life, Yggdrasil, and who is wounded in his side by a spear. There is Christ also on the cross, and who also is wounded in his side, and then there is the Buddha, a bit less dramatically, you could say. Because he's not fastened to an instrument of torture, but
he has the inner torment, right? He's trying to overcome the inner torments and the tests.
Yes, and also he has imposed this upon himself, that he said that I will not get up until I'm enlightened. He is sitting below the tree, so it's the tree symbolism, and he will not get up until he has transcended the suffering, which is what enlightenment is, because the first noble truth of Buddhism is life is suffering.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I think that on a smaller level, the Hanged Man in this process, like the process of a stage of life, for example, or the process of a spiritual initiation, is that part of it where you have to sit, or you have to bear it until it's over.
Yeah. Oh, this is a very heavy card. It's like really, it goes to the core of existence. The Hanged Man.
Yeah. It's a card that bothers many people.
Many people, yes. But I've always seen it positively. It's like also about, looking at the world from the inner perspective, not just the illusion or the Maya, but it's like, for me, it was always about going within and seeing the truth that reflects and that is maybe more true than what we are used to seeing.
Right. Yes. And you need a lot of courage to enter that truth.
Yeah. And is there some other card that speaks to you from the major arcana? That is like
apart from the Hanged Man. Yeah. So strength. Strength, I think, is to me a kind of opposite principle of the Hanged Man. They don't contradict each other. On the contrary, but strength is about taming your inner beast, and not just taming it, but also knowing it and accepting it. So it's somebody, usually a woman, who puts her hand into the mouth of
a lion,
or another beast. In tarot, I've seen it also being some undefinable beast, but the lion usually, right? Which is the lion being kind of the symbol of that beast. But then the fact that the woman can open and close the mouth of the lion, put her hand in there without having the hand bitten off, I mean, that's extremely symbolic, because the hand is what we human beings act in the world with. That is what we use, and being able to put that inside the mouth of a lion, knowing that it's not going to be bitten off, or trusting, having faith rather, that it's not going to be bitten off. That is entering life, and also entering into an understanding with your, well, you could say with your dark side, or with your animal side, and being united in them. And that is when you have that strength, that you can really make some true changes.
It's also about finding the heroic part of yourself, right? Or the hero that can work in this world of dualities, where things are not only positive but also negative. Isn't it also about like the ability to have the strength to go through it, or to fight back when it's necessary?
Yeah, you definitely need your dark side, otherwise, because otherwise some things are just going to take you out.
Yeah.
So you need that unification, and the world card. I found it fascinating, because in the beginning it's counterintuitive. I mean, in the beginning you just feel like, well, you're going up the tree of life, and up and up and up, and going through all these celestial bodies. And why, at the end of the journey, do you have the world? Why do you have, in a sense, the place that you started from? And I think that's it. That it's really all the things seem to be a reflection of each other. And in the way that the Magus has these 4 instruments, and these 4 instruments are all in the minor arcana, and we're modeling out reality all along the hero's journey, and all along the way through the tarot cards, and that entire reality through all those cards is all reflected in the world card. And that is, the world card is where you bring the various worlds together, and that whole journey together, and integrate them.
Yeah, it's like in the hero's journey, the hero he goes from home to learn something that he brings back home. So it's like going from somewhere but returning to the same place.
Yes, right? Yes, exactly.
Like experiencing the wholeness of you being the seed of this big tree, let's say, or you being in the tree.
Yeah, and that's another thing. And because I don't know how this all presented itself to me when I wrote the world, because one of the central things in the world is the tree. There's the world tree that the protagonist travels up and down on, and he it just depends, and you're on different branches of the world tree, and going up and going down, and then down to the roots, and down to the absolute limit of the roots underground, which is where the death card is found. When I wrote the first draft of the world, I mean, I was living it so much. I was dreaming about the tarot cards, and I would like wake up inside the tower or something, and whoa, like would be walking around not realizing where I was, and then suddenly, oh, I'm in the tower, and then I would wake up in the morning, it would just be flowing out of me. And at the same time, then after I had written the first draft, when I just had these kind of channeling of the tarot cards, or of some
so you tapped really deep into the symbolism while writing the novel, like you were experiencing your own tarot journey.
Yeah,
Mm.
it was like it was coming through me, but then I needed to, in order to make it into a novel, I needed to have some more of a novel structure, and
Mm.
therefore I started really studying the hero's journey. And when I did that, I was like, whoa, this is amazing how it fits in with the major arcana,
Mm.
because you have, I mean, there are some of them that just fit perfectly. There's
Yeah.
that point in the hero's journey, I believe it's called the descent into the innermost cave or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Yeah.
What your
Mm-hmm.
folklore
The
calls it,
innermost.
that
Yeah.
the innermost cave, and I mean that corresponds to death, right? It
Yeah.
corresponds to the tarot card death, and also like in the world that takes place in a cave. And I hadn't even read about the hero's journey when I
Mm.
wrote that chapter, and it's funny because these archetypes just seem to manifest themselves even
Yeah.
though we haven't read about them. It just what it feels right, and you know when it feels right.
Yeah. It's like almost inherent in us, right? When we write stories,
Yes,
it,
yes,
it just comes out this way.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, I think it's part of our neurology. It's part of our built-in structure, part of our
Mm.
firmware.